Hello and welcome to another episode of Ain't It Scary with Sean and Carrie. I'm the titular Sean.
And I'm the very titular Carrie.
It's the show that takes you inside the unbelievable, the unexplainable, the macabre, and the bizarre and tries to find an answer. Hello, Caroline.
Hi.
Listener, hello to you as well. We're leaving behind the fun and games of the holiday season.
Oh, so many fun and games stuck at home with COVID for a week.
And we're moving right along to some darker subject matter this week. Real lives were lost, real families destroyed, or at least one family. Carrie,
you have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm inferring? Carrie, what are we talking about?
Well, Sean, it's an unsolved disappearance.
Of a person, group of people?
A group of people.
A family?
Some.
Okay, so would you say that a family was destroyed?
Maybe.
Okay, all right. So I was on the right track.
Yes, this is a mass, I guess you could say, unsolved disappearance. And there's something about a lot of, any really unsolved disappearance cases. It just creeps me out to my core. Just the unexplained nature of them. Those weird little details that make no sense to literally anyone trying to figure them out.
Are we going to talk about aliens and death cults?
No, unfortunately, because that would be more fun. This one's pretty serious. There's and there's something about like the randomness of it all that just makes you kind of shiver a little bit.
Okay, I'm excited.
This week, I'm going to be taking you through the case of the Springfield 3, one of the weirdest disappearance cases I've ever looked into, and one with many of those odd aspects that stick in the brain long after you first learn of them.
Do tell. I am salivating, and I'm sure the listener is as well. Ears salivating with my ears.
Oh, you should probably get that checked out.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. I have a handkerchief here for my ear drool.
This case originates in Springfield, Missouri, a town in the Ozarks area, the Ozarks being the location of such movies and shows as Winter's Bone, True Detective, and shocker, Ozark.
Yep.
Starring your friend Laura Linney.
Right on the tin with that one. Oh, do I love Laura Linney.
We know.
Abigail Adams herself.
As a note, along with episodes devoted to the case by the shows People Magazine Investigates and Disappeared, which I believe both of those are on ID Discovery, I will be using other info available online from the Charlie Project, the Springfield, Missouri webpage, the Streeter family blog, which is run by family members of two of the victims, the destroyed family that you talked about, Sean, and some other sources. You can also look at a podcast called The Springfield 3, A Small Town Disappearance. It goes into like a mini-series amount of depth into the case, including interviews, which we're not doing here today. What we're doing here today is kind of providing an overview and the main points of the case, because I feel like it's not very well known. You clearly had no idea what it was.
A family was destroyed, Carrie.
Sean, the story begins with a classic rite of passage, high school graduation. What's that graduation song?
As we go
No.
on, we remember.
It's not Hail to the Chief, but it sounds like Hail to the Chief.
Oh, you're talking about Pomp and Circumstance?
Yes, there we go. So you kind of have that whole vibe throughout the beginning of this story. Best friends Suzie Streeter and Stacey McCall, 19 and 18 years old respectively, graduated from Kickapoo High School in Springfield, Missouri on the afternoon of June 6th, 1992.
Is the Tenacious D song about them?
It might be... Wait, what's the song?
No, it's like he is in Kickapoo doing nothing, and then...
Oh, well,
Ronnie James Dio comes through the wall and turns him into a rock god.
I can't speak to that, but I will say that Kickapoo High was also the alma mater of one Brad Pitt. And by the way, his name isn't Brad Pitt, it's William Pitt.
Well, aren't you gonna cast Brad over Bill?
Sure. I also found out today, Sean, and this is completely unrelated, Joe Rogan
Yes.
is cousins with Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance.
News Radio's Joe Rogan?
Well, one of them, yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That those are just people you can't ever imagine being related.
Yeah, there's some of those out there. I can't think of any. Kirk and Michael Douglas.
Well, okay. So back to I just had to share that because that really blew my mind. So we have Suzie Streeter, Stacey McCall, seniors in high school. They've just graduated on June 6th, 1992. Suzie and Stacey had met around second grade and had gone to school together most of their lives. They weren't always super close, but I think a lot of the nostalgia kind of pulled them back together at this point. Mm-hmm. You know, the end of high school kind of vibe.
As we go on,
that's the one for this.
We remember.
Stacey McCall was more of the stereotypical good girl, a good student who would model bridal gowns at the dress shop in town. Suzie, meanwhile, was more artsy, into like the bad boy types, but she wasn't really known to cause trouble herself. It was kind of more who she associated with. She worked at the local movie theater, and she was known to be very friendly and very outgoing. The girls got their diplomas that day, and they were really excited for the future. Suzie was planning to go to cosmetology school, and Stacey was going to be heading to college at Missouri State in the fall with the girls' mutual friend, Janelle Kirby. But first, it was time to party. Mm-hmm. That's all for after summer, baby.
Sure. First, we have to do the plot of not Grease. Grease is the beginning of school. The plot of Dazed and Confused.
Yeah. Instead of attending Kickapoo High School's all-night alcohol-free graduation party, they instead party hopped that evening, ending their festivities around 2:15 a.m. when they were last seen leaving to head back to Suzie's mother's home at 1717 East Delmar in Springfield.
Was it like Dazed and Confused, do you think? Like out in the woods with a keg? People climbing a radio tower?
No, but it's a little wonky. So just to kind of clarify, Suzie's mom was named Sherrill-Levitt. She lived at the home with Suzie. They lived by themselves together. Sherrill was 47, a single mom. She had recently been divorced, and I think she had recently just bought this house too. I don't know how recently though. She was herself a cosmetologist, which influenced Suzie's chosen profession. They were, again, very close. So Suzie and Stacey, and there are a lot of S names in this, so I'm trying to...
Well, and
Suzie is Cheryl's daughter, and Stacey is her friend.
They both also have S's right in the middle, so yes. Suzie and Stacey is so much.
Yes. So Suzie and Stacey, the teen girls, called it a night since they were heading to an amusement park named Whitewater the next day in nearby Branson, Missouri for a big friend meetup, and they were planning on getting up early for this. At some point in the night, they were also seen in the town of Battlefield.
Battlefield?
Yeah, well, I think there was an actual battlefield nearby from the Civil War.
I would think, yeah.
Which could come in later. Who knows? Originally, they were both going to stay the night at a hotel in Branson near Whitewater, but they decided to stay at another friend's home in Battlefield. Suzie had called her mom again around 10:30 p.m. to let her know. So that was the last time that they talked.
Mm-hmm.
They decided to change plans again, and this is so stereotypical of like kind of freewheeling summer fun, like whatever.
Hot girl summer.
Hot girl summer. They decided to go to Suzie's to sleep instead because Janelle's home, their mutual friend in Battlefield, was too crowded with family. Janelle's family from Kansas was all staying over for graduation, and there were no beds. So Janelle was the last person to see them before they left, sometime between 2 and 2:30 a.m. Unfortunately, the alleged timeline of the women's final known hours is kind of convoluted, as we just went through, because they were just party hopping all over the place.
Right, and there was alcohol
involved
as well.
Mm-hmm. Sherrill-Levitt, this is Suzie's mom, she was last heard from at about 11:15 p.m. when she phoned a friend, and she discussed a chest of drawers she was painting at the time in the house. So she mentioned she was doing a craft. It's not relevant, but you know.
And this is the mom at the house that they are on their way to.
Yes. Sherrill didn't give any indication that something was wrong or that she felt unsafe in any way during this call. It was normal. Stacey had told her mother, again, that she was staying at Janelle's that night, but it seems, again, Stacey didn't update her once they figured that they were going to go to the Streeter-Levitt home to crash. Suzie and Stacey drove back to Suzie's home in their separate cars, and that was the last time they were ever known to be seen.
Were the cars found at the house?
Yes. No one ever heard from Suzie Streeter, Stacey McCall, or Suzie's mother, Sherrill-Levitt, ever again.
Wow.
So, right off the bat, first of all, we have this kind of mass disappearance, which in itself is weird.
3 people just vanishing?
You usually hear of like a single person disappearing at once, or maybe multiple people disappeared over time, but they were found in the same place, like with the Ariel Castro kidnappings in Cleveland. But for 2 older teenage girls and one of their mothers to vanish all at once is, to say the least, very odd.
Even if it was just the 2 girls, you could say, well, this could be a runaway situation. Who knows what they're off doing? Teenage girls, hot girl summer, right? Who knows what they're up to? But the mom being missing as well, something's immediately super wrong here.
Yeah. According to some places I looked at, there weren't any other cases of 3 people disappearing from the same location at once in this way until this one.
Wow. I mean, yeah, because if you think about like a kidnapping.
Yeah, I mean, there are other things where I think there was, what was it, the Donner children or whatever, with that weird thing where their house was lit on fire and the kids kind of disappeared. And we'll go into that sometime. But
yeah, sure. Maybe a mini, maybe a maxi episode.
Yeah. It's weird that it's not like one family. It's weird. But that's not the last weirdness in this case.
Well, it's also, if you were going to, like, a disappearance that's a kidnapping or a murder, if 3 people being kidnapped, how much manpower do you need? Do you need like 6 dudes? Is it a squad of assassins who are there to kidnap these people, if that's what happened?
Yeah, and
so that's why you don't see a lot of 3-person disappearances.
Yeah, I'm going to go into the evidence or the kind of state of the scene, but it's really hard to figure out, and that's one of the weird things about it. The next morning, June 7th, Janelle called her close friend Suzie's house around 7:30 a.m. to make plans to get on the road and head to the Whitewater amusement park. This is the same Janelle that was the last to see Stacey and Suzie when they left her house.
Right. I thought she was going to be the 3rd victim.
Well, that's another twist.
Plot twist.
No one at Suzie's house answered the phone. Again, this is 1992, all landlines. So she left a message on the answering machine. She had been planning to go to the gathering at Whitewater with the 2 girls, so she kept on calling and waiting for them until about noon, when she was kind of becoming concerned, or at least was thinking, hey, did these bitches leave without me?
Yeah.
Janelle and her boyfriend Mike headed over to the Streeter-Levitt home to see what was up.
Yeah, to give them a piece of her mind.
Well, just to like wake them up, maybe. I don't know. There, they first found all 3 of the women's cars in the driveway. The girls' cars had like that kind of half circle front driveway thing, and Cheryl's car was in the car park. It was like an overhang.
A carport?
Yes.
So now they're going like, these dicks are eating waffles.
Like they're all here. Why aren't they answering the phone? As they mounted the front steps, Janelle and Mike noticed shards of glass scattered to the ground in front of the front door. It looked like the glass casing around the globe light above the door was shattered.
That's weird. Definitely thought you were going to say, like, a window next to the door where somebody...
No, it was the globe light.
Michael Myers their way into a handle.
Unfortunately, considering that later this may have been some good evidence, Mike decided to sweep up the glass because Janelle was barefooted and he didn't want her to cut herself. So he swept the glass away.
Right at this moment, right? Like he didn't know it was evidence yet?
No, of
presumably?
Course not. Yeah. And he thought he was probably he didn't want his girlfriend to cut her feet. I'm always walking around barefoot in the summer, so I get it. And
he thinks he's helping out the people who live there.
He thinks he's doing a solid. They found that the front door was unlocked, and they went inside. The house looked very normal, with nothing seeming to be out of place. The pair checked the backyard, nothing. The family dog, Cinnamon, a Yorkshire Terrier. Yeah, he's very sweet. The dog was still in the house and looking fine, but kind of anxious. Which, again, that's Poe's kind of...
Sounds like a Yorkshire Terrier.
Well, yeah, it's like it's a normal state of being for a small dog. Janelle and Mike waited a few minutes to no avail, but as they headed out to leave the house, the phone rang. This is the phone inside the house, the landline.
The call is coming from inside the house.
Just in case it was one of the girls for some reason calling the house, Janelle picked up the phone.
Isn't that funny? When a phone is ringing, you just have to...
I guess.
Someone's got to answer it.
It was not Suzie or Stacey or even Sherrill. It sounded like a man who wouldn't identify himself and was described as an obscene phone call where he made sexually explicit comments.
Okay.
I could not find anywhere where Janelle divulged the actual contents of the call beyond that it was a lewd call.
But the contents presumably did not include, I have these 3 girls and here's what I'm
I don't think
gonna
it
do.
mentioned anyone by name. Janelle hung up, remembering that Suzie had mentioned she'd received phone calls before, and this was a common thing for people to do back in the day. There was no internet. We had to make our own fun. The phone rang again. Same scenario.
Oh, Jesus.
Janelle hung up, and sick of the landline creep, the couple left, thinking that the girls had just left to go to the amusement park without them.
In what car?
I don't know. Meanwhile, the McCalls, Stacey's family, were starting to get antsy too. Stacey had told her mother that she'd call when she got up, but she, hadn't updated her on where she would be staying that night. So Janice called Janelle's house, thinking that Stacey was still there, but Janelle's sister told her that the girls weren't there and that Stacey had slept over Suzie's the night before.
Mm-hmm.
Janice figured that the girls were just on their way to Branson, to the park, and she decided to sit tight. Again, before cell phones, she just had to wait until Stacey called.
Yeah, I was thinking, too, about how when the friend and her boyfriend get to the house and they're not home, you would just call one of their, now you would just call one of their cell phones, and when they don't answer, then now you start getting worried.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't there.
No. 7 hours later, Stacey still hadn't called. So Janice decided to go to the Streeter-Levitt home as well, and she ran into Janelle and Mike, who had returned to the home to check in again. Apparently.
Wait, so did they not go to the amusement park?
I'm not sure, but this was in the evening, like 5 o'clock, at least. The group became worried as they looked closer in the house and realized that Suzie, Stacey, and Sherrill's purses were all there, including their wallets, makeup, and cigarettes and lighters. Sherrill, especially, was apparently a chain smoker. Like, she wouldn't leave a room without bringing her cigarettes. Mm-hmm. So it was super weird that she didn't have them. Janice also noticed that Sherrill's purse was in Suzie's room with Suzie and Stacey's purses, which she found weird. And she also saw her daughter's shorts and new bra folded neatly on top of her shoes. Those were the only clothes that Stacey had left the house with, including her shirt and underwear. So she must have had just like a shirt and underwear on to go to bed, and it's not really something you'd leave the house wearing. Maybe Stacey could have borrowed bottoms from Suzie, if they were kind of the same size. It's something I've done, if she left on her own accord, but then why leave your bra?
Well, she could have put on other clothes too, right? And just not picked up the ones from yesterday.
Well, again, it would have had to be Susie's clothes.
Oh, because it's not her. Yep.
Yeah.
It's not her house.
And it's not her. I mean, it's not typically something you'd borrow from someone else, a bra. So it's weird that I think Stacey's mom had mentioned that it was new. So it's like, well, you got to wear your new bra, Like, why is it there? Why didn't they have any of their important possessions with them? Or at least one of the cars? Where were they?
Yeah, but certainly women wouldn't have left without their purses, and definitely not if they're all smokers.
Yes. Janice noted that the TV was turned on, just playing static. She also checked the answering machine and heard her own messages play, because she had left a few, along with another weird message of a male voice saying strange things.
That's another artifact of the past. We couldn't probably tune our TV to static if we wanted to, right?
Probably not, no.
They should put that on Netflix, just Snow that you can't get anymore.
So there was another weird message of a guy saying strange things. Unfortunately, and you will be hearing me say unfortunately a lot during this case, Janice accidentally, I think, deleted the message.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Janice!
And couldn't recall later the exact content of it, which seems very strange to me. But
Janice just seems worthless.
Police later said they feel this message is unrelated to the earlier crank calls that Janelle heard and is more related to the investigation, possibly including a clue. But I'm not sure of what reasoning they have for this. I've heard some theorize that Janice does remember more about the message, but police have requested she keep it private so they can later validate evidence.
I see.
So she might just be playing dumb.
Is this still under investigation? I guess we can talk about it later.
Kind of. Janice then called her husband, Stacey's father, Stu, to tell him that she couldn't find the girls and still hadn't heard from Stacey. Stu headed over to the house saying he felt like he had a gut feeling that something might be wrong, and while she waited, Janice phoned the police. Police officer Rick Bookout arrived on the scene soon after, and it's evening by this time. He found several people throughout the house and in the backyard, including Janice McCall, who informed him of the situation and that all of Stacey and Suzie's friends that she'd contacted had also not seen the girls, and they were all concerned about their whereabouts.
I wonder if his first thought was, why wasn't I called earlier? Like, shouldn't the cop be like the third person on this scene?
Well, there's nothing that looks suspicious, really. Like, you call the police and you say, my friend's not here? I mean, there's no signs of a struggle.
There's broken glass. All their purses are still here.
Well, the broken glass is from, like, a lamp, though, outside. That might not be anything.
Yeah, all right.
If you're not.
Well, what did this guy say? Did he say give it 48 hours?
Well, he did a walkthrough of the house, and he noted that nothing really seemed amiss. It didn't look like it was ransacked or that anything had been robbed. Sherrill's bed appeared to have been slept in the previous night, and her eyeglasses were beside her bed with a book kind of turned over, like she was marking her page, or maybe interrupted while reading. There was nothing that looked like a struggle. Susie's bedroom had been slept in, and hers and Stacey's clothes that they'd been wearing the night before were folded, as we mentioned, and there were makeup towelettes in the garbage indicating they'd removed their makeup before bed, which is what you're supposed to do, unlike me, who just falls asleep.
Wake up with raccoon eyes.
Yes. Their jewelry had also been taken off and was still on the table, so that hadn't been taken either.
Okay. So they went to bed, and then at some point between bedtime, obviously, and when their friends came over.
So this is probably looking at like about 3 to 8.
So in that 5-hour window sometime, someone somehow got into the house, presumably,
Maybe.
and killed or disappeared them.
Maybe. So Bookout finds, your eyes are so wide. Bookout finds all 3 sets of keys, all 3 purses, and there was even a couple $100 in Sherrill's purse that hadn't been taken. So again, it counts against it being robbery. He became more concerned upon finding the aforementioned cigarettes and lighter in the purse because he had been told that Sherrill was like a huge chain smoker and she would not be without her cigarettes.
Right.
The blinds in Susie's room were pulled apart as if someone had been looking outside. Bookout stated, quote, "I didn't see any signs of foul play, but I don't think they left there willingly. 3 women are not just going to walk out of the house leaving things that are important to them behind.
Well, yeah, exactly.
A note was left on the front door asking the women to contact the police if they returned, and a missing persons report was written up. The group left the house, and Stu McCall stayed up that night in case his daughter Stacey returned home, but she never did.
Ever? I knew the answer to that.
The next morning, the case really hit the ground running. It was assigned to Detective David Asher with the Springfield PD, who immediately felt like something was amiss due to the personal items that had been left behind.
Yeah, that's what the previous guy put in his report.
Well, he also realized that unfortunately the scene must have been tainted because up to 10 people had been in and out of the home during the previous day. Again, it was unlocked. Multiple people were looking for them.
This is like any of the family axe murders we've covered. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, there's always a house full of neighbors just ruining all the evidence.
John Benet Ramsey.
Mm-hmm.
The house was
that might have been by design.
Well, yeah. We'll get to that someday. The house was finally cordoned off and processed by the crime scene investigators, and detectives at this point theorized that someone either took them from the house in a threatening manner or it was someone they knew, and that's why there was no struggle. Either way, they left their house without making a scene, wearing just the clothes on their back. So the investigation first turned to Sherrill's background because she was older. She was described as having no enemies by close family, and that the only way to get the best of her would be if someone held a gun to her child's head. That's a quote. Sherrill had been recently divorced from Suzie's stepfather and had bought this home. Both her previous husbands were pretty much cleared very soon after all this happened. Sherrill seemed to be enjoying her newfound independence, and she was focused on her daughter and reinventing her life. The obscene phone calls, as we discussed, were of particular interest to investigators, but all that Janelle had gathered from them was that she thought the voice was teenish, but she didn't recognize it.
But investigators did say that the message they thought contained a clue?
The voice message, yes, on the answering machine that Janice accidentally deleted.
Ugh, Janice.
Technology wasn't great for tracing calls back in 1992, and apparently the phone company couldn't trace it.
Oh, keep him on the line.
Well, Janelle did say that she regretted hanging up on the guy and not trying to get more of the caller, but again, he was a creep, and Suzie had stated that she'd received crank calls before. So I can't blame Janelle for not wanting to talk to some anonymous heavy breather.
Do you think it was just heavy breathing, or were the things he said so obscene
things?
So
that's all we know.
That she daren't repeat.
Either that or she can't, because again, it might be evidence. Panic began to spread through Springfield, which was normally a town described as where you left your doors unlocked. America's hometown. Family and friends handed out missing persons flyers. They canvassed the area, and they spread the word as best they could. The news picked up the story throughout several Missouri counties, and that's when they dubbed the women the Springfield Three. Thousands of leads poured in over the next few days, which detectives worked diligently to follow up on. And during this time, they began to pursue another lead, Suzie's older brother and Sherrill's son, Bart Streeter.
What do you think happens more often when there's a media kind of circus like that around a case? Do you think it helps by, widening kind of the net of search and the awareness of the case? Or do you think it more often just becomes too much of a cluster and thousands of tips? It's like with Ted Bundy, weren't there just a bazillion tips that police had to just sift through, or just not sift, just throw your hands up and go, we're not looking anymore?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture. I think a lot of media scrutiny can taint a case, and I think sometimes a case is only broken by someone seeing a show and being like, oh, I know that person, so it's really a double-edged sword, I think.
Yeah.
So Bart Streeter was 9 years older than Suzie, and he was seen by most of the family as a black sheep. At this time, he was an alcoholic and had a turbulent relationship with his mother and sister.
Don't have a cow, man.
And he'd recently had a bitter falling out with both of them. Suzie had apparently been afraid that Bart would hurt her after this point due to his violent temper.
And his slingshot.
The People magazine Investigates documentary went into Bart a lot more than other places that I saw, including a interview with Sherrill's sister and Bart's own aunt, who said, quote, "I know he's my nephew, but I don't have a great deal of respect for him. Would he be able to do something like this? Maybe in a fit of rage and passion, but I don't know." That was like a couple of years ago, his aunt saying that about him.
A, that's scathing. B, I think what it looks like we have here, and it doesn't look like a fit of rage and passion that was then had to be hastily cleaned up afterward.
Right.
But anyway, take that for what it is.
Yeah. Bart had left home at 17. He was known to be violent because he had punched his own mother previously.
Oh, Bart, no, sir.
And he hung around with alleged lowlifes and supporters of his alcohol addiction. He was also said to behave bizarrely sometimes, and it became so bad that Sherrill had asked him to not be a part of her and Suzie's lives. He'd left for a couple years, but returned to Springfield after a breakup, and he was really wanting to try and repair his familial relationships. He got a new job. He was trying to clean up nice. Interestingly, Suzie had moved in with Bart after she turned 18 during her senior year of high school.
With her brother?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's unusual. While Sherrill didn't approve of this, she felt that maybe it would either help Suzie see who her brother really was, or ideally he would step up to the plate and look after her, and maybe they'd become closer.
Do you have any sense? I mean, you said he was trying to step up to the plate. Do you get any sense that that's actually true, or was he just like saying he was?
I think he probably had good intentions, but he was still an alcoholic. So at one point after Suzie moved in, Bart had been getting drunk and blasting music, and Suzie asked him to turn down the stereo, and he refused. So she leaned past him to turn the music down, and Bart grabbed her, becoming violently angry in his drunken stupor, and eventually hit her hard enough to bruise her face.
Oh, Bart, no. Yeah. So he's like a serial puncher.
Not great. She didn't speak to him after that, and she returned to living with Sherrill.
Yeah, that tracks.
Bart said that he was at a neighbor's getting drunk the night of the disappearance. The neighbor verified this and said Bart got sloshed and left a bit after 11.
Well, hold on. That doesn't absolve
I'm aware.
him at all.
I'm aware. Bart said that at this point he returned home and slept it off that night. I'm a little unclear on corroboration that he was able to get for this alibi of being at home.
I'm a little unclear just how it's an alibi.
Well, the People magazine Investigates documentary said that there was no corroboration, but the Disappeared documentary said that a girlfriend verified it. So I don't know what's right.
A girlfriend
verified that he was home. Maybe she was there. Oh, that's all I heard.
Well, that would make sense, sure.
Though either way, police were concerned. A polygraph showed that Bart was being truthful. Take that however you will. Not
admissible in court. Barely real science. Go ahead.
He was also tabled for the moment as a suspect because he continued to cooperate with the investigation, and he seemed to be trying to help. So police widened their net, looking at not only other suspects, but hoping to find more evidence. They dragged Lake Springfield, not like a reading is fundamental dragging. They were trying to see if they'd find any bodies or anything related to the case. They used helicopters to scan the area. They utilized police and cadaver dogs. They found nothing. Unfortunately, her brother Bart wasn't the only negative male presence in Suzie Streeter's life. Her ex-boyfriend, Dustin Rekla, also emerged as a person of interest as the police continued their investigation. Remember how I said that Suzie liked the bad boy types?
I do. I, for some reason, didn't see that as a planted seed at the time.
Well, that was Dustin. Suzie's friend Nigel described their relationship as, quote, "They had a good relationship. They got along really well until they didn't.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, a relationship, but...
Yeah. Nigel also said that Dustin was basically a good guy, but in with the wrong crowd. In February 1992, Dustin and his friend Michael Clay took Suzie's car to the site of a mausoleum where they broke in and literally stole human remains out of the mausoleum to take their teeth.
Kids being kids.
They left the skulls in a tree in a nearby park, and Dustin sold 26 grams of gold fillings from the skulls at a local pawn shop, which called the cops.
That is a lot of effort.
Mm-hmm.
It like, you forget the desecration of the corpses. It just seems like how you couldn't possibly get enough gold to be worth the effort of pulling all those dead teeth
grams.
out of those skulls.
I really have no sense of like measurement or anything, so I don't know. Suzie was brought in for questioning because, again, it was her car, and she cooperated. She was scheduled to testify against Dustin and Michael in court sometime after her disappearance, and it was clear that she and Dustin had broken up after this point. So, much like a mob hit, did Dustin and Michael enact revenge on Suzie to prevent her from testifying in their trial.
Right now, by the way, a gram of gold is $58.
Okay, so it's not bad.
No, it's probably pretty good money, actually.
So we'll investigate this theory and more after the break.
Welcome back. When last we left you, we were just going to get into the investigation that followed the disappearance of the Springfield Three. Caroline?
Yes.
You told me there were some twists and turns coming.
Yes, and there are. We have 3 women, 2 recent high school graduates, Suzie Streeter and Stacey McCall, and one of their mothers, Sherrill-Levitt. They have all vanished from the mother's home without a trace, without any sign of where they went, who they might be with, and without taking any of their possessions with them or leaving any signs of a struggle or theft.
And seemingly with the clothes on their back?
Yes. The latest suspects that we were talking about in possible foul play related to this case are Dustin Rekla and Michael Clay, who used Suzie Streeter's car in their crime of breaking into a mausoleum, stealing skeletal remains, and desecrating corpses to sell their fillings.
Right.
Nice guys.
And they broke up after that.
Yes.
I don't see motive for a triple homicide there.
No, Suzie had told
That's
police,
a big step up from stealing corpse gold.
Yes. Suzie had told police that Rekla and Clay were the ones who committed the crime, so she had pinned it on them. She was scheduled to testify against them, and conveniently for them, she disappeared before she got the chance. Police immediately called Rekla and Clay when they found their story out, and apparently Clay told Detective Asher that, quote, "I wish those bitches were dead."
Well, maybe something you wouldn't say if they had just been murdered at your hands.
Yeah. I mean, again, like just like you said, would you elevate to murder to cover up a far less serious case?
Right. It's a larceny thing, right? I mean, this sounds like this gold actually was worth a lot, and also there's the corpse desecration thing. But you're not going to do a triple homicide to cover up something that you're going to go away for like a couple years
unless
for?
You're enormously stupid.
Well, and
or you just want to kill people.
And these are the gold tooth corpse robbers, so
yeah. Rekla stated that he went to a concert and was passed out in a car on the night in question, but no one was able to corroborate this. Clay, it seemed, just didn't have an alibi.
This is why you always pass out in cars with a buddy.
The teens' fingerprints were taken to compare them to those with the crime scene, but there were no matches found. They both took polygraph tests as well and passed, but again, as we always say on this show, it's a bunk science.
How do you dust for prints on this case? You don't know what part of the house is the crime scene.
It's not, I mean, you dust the whole thing, right? Any kind of surface that you think would have it. But again, 10 people going in and out plus the victims. That's a lot of elimination you're going to have to do.
Plus just any non-family visitors they've had.
Yeah.
In general, in the last few weeks or months.
Yeah, exactly. Months more passed until a tipster called into the police and suggested they look into a man named Robert Craig Cox, the main suspect in the 1976 murder case of a woman named Sharon Zellers.
But before we continue, I have to ask, did this called tip come after like a lot of heavy breathing?
No, it seemed like a normal tip.
You gotta look at this guy.
Christian Bale, Batman? So he was the suspect in the murder of Sharon Zellers, another S name. I apologize. Sharon Zellers was a Florida teenager who was abducted on her way home from Disney World, where she worked. Cox had been staying in a nearby hotel in Orlando with his parents while they were visiting Disney and returned the night of Zellers' kidnapping badly injured. His tongue had almost been bitten off.
So he was arrested for this kidnapping?
Well, he was taken to the hospital, and he insisted that he had done this himself. It was just a terrible accident. But the nurse was like, no, it was bitten from the other way, because you can tell by the curvature of the teeth. Right. And police found Sharon's body only 100 or so feet away from Cox's hotel room.
Oh, not careful.
So Cox was convicted and sentenced to death for the murder, but he got off due to a rare ruling that his conviction and death sentence should be overturned due to lack of evidence.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm. The Zellers family, however, kept track of him, believing he was the killer of their loved one and that he would kill again.
That's not the kind of crime that is usually an isolated incident.
Exactly, especially since it was already a random killing. In 1992, they found that he was working with a telephone surveying company at the time of the disappearances and was checking out the phone wiring under and in front of the Streeter-Levitt home. Cox was also weirdly previously employed at the same car dealership as Stuart McCall, Stacey's father.
Okay, so it's, Stacey's father, but they were at Suzie's house, right?
Yeah, but that's weird.
Yeah. It's a connection.
Stu said he didn't remember him, but there were times that Stacey did bring meals to her father at work, and Cox had likely seen her.
Yeah. Okay. If he was obsessed with her, I don't know how he knew she would be sleeping over to that house. So he...
Well, I theorize about it a little bit later.
Okay.
After being brought in for questioning, Cox told police that he had nothing to do with the disappearance. He said that he went to a golf tournament that night, stayed with his parents, and took his girlfriend to church the next morning.
He doesn't sound like a big golfer.
The girlfriend backed up his story and said, we did go to church and all that. And there wasn't much else police could do to detain him because, again, no evidence.
By the way, so many of my friends are single.
Well, we'll get into that later.
How does that guy have a girlfriend?
I mean, there's something to be said for confidence, I guess. Years later, in 1995, police learned that Cox was sent to a Texas prison for holding an armed weapon on a 12-year-old girl. Big yikes.
Doppler.
He began to serve a life sentence for aggravated robbery. Detectives went to Texas to re-interview him, and things began to change. He didn't confess to the disappearance or to killing the Springfield Three, but he didn't deny it either. He just didn't talk. He wouldn't talk to them.
Okay.
Police re-interviewed his girlfriend from the time of the disappearance, who had provided his alibi, and she had drastically changed her story.
Uh-oh.
She told police she had no idea where Cox was the night of the disappearance, and they hadn't actually gone to church the next day.
So...
She was just covering for him.
Right.
I think she thought that he was doing other crimes at the time.
I thought he was doing non-murder crimes.
A local TV reporter interviewed Cox in prison in 1996, and Cox broke his silence about the crime, stating that, quote, "I know that they're dead. I'll say that. I know that. That's not my theory. I just know that. There's no doubt about that."
Well, I know that too.
Or it's incriminating,
Not for me. I didn't do this, just to be clear.
After this, law enforcement returned to Texas to re-interview Cox once again, and though he wouldn't admit he was responsible, he kept repeating that he just knew that they were dead, and that he would tell them the truth when his mother died, but not before then, as he didn't want to embarrass her. And as far as about 3 years ago, she's still kicking, so...
Oh my God. Well, so that sounds more like this guy is saying I did it, but I'm not saying I did it.
Maybe. Police were unsure whether Cox was really serious or trying to just get some attention, attaching himself to a crime for notoriety, which is kind of a common criminal tactic, confessing to a crime you didn't commit.
Right. Well, why not confess to it, though?
Because it's mysterious. It keeps them coming back, baby. And he has not spoken about the case since. And again, as far as I know, his mom has not kicked the bucket. So maybe when she does, there'll be something new coming, but that's it.
False confessions are definitely a thing. We'll have to cover Henry Lee Lucas, the world's biggest fan of Burger King, at some point on this podcast. But people, confess to things they didn't do all the time. Mm-hmm. I wonder if you would dangle a false confession this way. But there was that...
he's got life in prison. He's only got time. Keep him coming back for more.
And we had at least one D.B. Cooper guy who was like, maybe I am D.B. Cooper. We'll never know.
Saucy little minx. In 1997, after 5 years of the investigation, police were forced to close the case due to a lack of emerging evidence and leads. Sherrill-Levitt and Suzie Streeter were legally declared dead by their family, but the McCalls refused to do so in Stacey's case. And the case has remained cold ever since. But Sean, that's not the end of the weirdness or the strange little details, not by a long shot.
Oh, thank God.
So I'll go through some of these chronologically and chart a bit of a timeline, and then we'll go into theories at the very end, and we can see what we both think.
Okay.
So first, a friend who also arrived at the Streeter-Levitt home on the morning of June 7th noted that Suzie was parked in an area she wasn't usually in, within the circle driveway. The friend noted that it looked as though either Sherrill wasn't home and she had maybe parked back a little bit to let her in and out of the carport.
I see. Or
that someone else had been parked there. Not sure how this fits in, but I wanted to note it.
So a little gap between Cheryl's car and hers, probably.
Well, Cheryl's car was in the carport, but there was a gap behind it, I guess. And you would think that you would pull all the way
up behind the car.
Yes. As far as I could tell. On June 14th, about a week after the women first went missing, authorities searched an apartment building after a letter containing a rough drawing of an apartment complex and the phrase, "use ruse of gas man checking for leak," was found in a newsletter rack at a grocery store nearby.
What? Say all of that again?
It's very weird. Okay. It's a week after the women go missing. Authorities searched an apartment building after finding a letter containing a drawing of that same building and the phrase written, "use ruse of gas man checking for a leak." And they found this letter in a newspaper rack at the grocery store.
What does this have to do with the case?
They're trying to do anything that they can. But I'm gonna go into it when we do theories. It could play in.
Okay, but from the information I have, am I missing something, or does it appear to have nothing to do with the Springfield?
Yeah, it could have nothing to do with them. But they were literally grasping at straws.
This is
this is a week later, so that's not great for the investigation if they're already grasping at straws.
This is one of the red herrings they'll throw you in, Sherlock Holmes consulting detective.
Yeah, but it's also at least they are being diligent and looking. They're literally looking at everything. The next day, they started working on a tip about a transient who neighbors had seen near the home days before the disappearance and produced a police sketch of a man with long hair and a full beard.
Okay.
Nothing came of it, but A couple weeks after the disappearance, a witness told police that she spotted a woman matching Suzie's description driving an early model Dodge van this is like a panel van, about 2 miles away from the Streeter-Levitt home. The van was celery green, and it's also alternately called avocado green or moss green, but
Sure.
Celery green is what they usually go with. And the back windows were painted over. And she said that she saw this person matching Suzie's description early the morning of the disappearance, driving this van. The witness said that Suzie looked like she was crying heavily as she turned the van around in the witness's driveway. And the witness heard a male voice saying, "Don't do anything stupid," as it happened.
When was this reported?
This was reported a couple weeks after the disappearance because the witness hadn't come forward earlier because she hadn't seen the missing persons poster at that time. But when she did see it, she saw Suzie's picture and she recognized Streeter as the driver of the van.
Do you think it's possible that she remembered back into that, edited into that memory, "Don't do anything stupid"?
I mean, I don't know about that, but she could have seen another blonde girl,
Yeah, but the woman crying and hearing a man's voice say, "Don't do anything stupid," I'm calling the police whether I recognize that person or not.
Yeah, I mean, I would too.
So there's something weird.
Yeah, I would say someone just turned around in my driveway. I would probably make note of the license plate, but I'm not sure if there was a license plate on the front.
But they turned around.
Van. Yeah, I guess. But if you're
I know
if you're
you do
facing a
3-point turn.
driveway, it might be all on the side. A van was painted to match the description and used as an example for the public, kind of like parked in front of the police.
Okay. This seems more like a gimmick than an investigative tactic. But
they were trying everything. And you'll see a lot about the celery-colored van whenever you look into this case.
This is like that JonBenet Ramsey doc on CBS or whatever where they built the whole house. So we can walk through the crime scene as it was.
But it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool. Later that month, a tip came in. Oh, by the way, I think part of the reason they did that is because they had to do the reenactments anyway. So you might as well.
That's a good
Two
point.
birds, one stone.
And you're CBS. You've got a props department.
Yes. Anyway, unrelated. Later that month, so this is June 1992, a tip came in from a server at Sherrill's favorite restaurant, George's Steakhouse. They told police that the 3 women came into the restaurant sometime between 1 and 3 a.m. on the night in question, both arriving and leaving together. During the visit, the waitress said that Suzie appeared to be drunk and maybe upset about something, and that Sherrill was trying to calm her down the whole time.
This is very interesting. And this stuff, unlike maybe a couple of the other things we've heard, this all tracks with the rest of it, right? We know they were off getting drunk.
Yes, but this is probably after they arrived home.
Right. But it was the 2 girls and the mom?
And they had already taken off their makeup and stuff. Yes, it was the 2 girls and the mom.
Oh, they had taken off the makeup.
That's why it's weird. And police said that the server was likely mistaken on which night it was, maybe, because the steakhouse was typically very busy at this time. It was the weekend, but again, who knows?
Who knows? That was between 1 and 3 a.m.?
Yes.
Did you say steakhouse?
I was going to make a note of that, but I was like, well, it's the 90s. People didn't have anything to do. Maybe it was open. I don't know.
Weird.
Maybe it's like an Applebee's, more like.
This
those
Missouri?
are open till like 2 a.m. Missouri, yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. I also read that in late summer the same year, an elderly man was arrested in Springfield for making lewd crank calls to homes all over the town. And my main source on this is Web Sleuths, so, But it seemed to be common knowledge to them.
Well, okay, so that could suggest the calls are unrelated.
Yeah, many theorize now that the obscene calls were from this geriatric creep and not related to the case.
I thought he sounded teen.
I know, right? I don't know. On New Year's Eve 1992, a man called the America's Most Wanted tip hotline after the case was discussed on the show with information about the disappearances. The call was, unfortunately, do a shot, cut off when the switchboard operator attempted to link it with the Springfield police.
Oh, and
I
before
guess
that, it was
hung
all
up or something.
It was all heavy breathing before that.
Well, police said that the caller had prime knowledge of the abductions. I'm not really sure how they knew if they never got connected. Maybe he said something to the switchboard operator.
Yes, hello, I have prime knowledge of the abductions. Click.
And the police publicly appealed for the man to recontact them, but nothing came of it.
Now, what the hell?
Well, either he really did have something that maybe he said to the switchboard operator, or maybe it was just the police trying to explain away why they didn't have any new evidence. Like, oh, it's not my fault. People keep fucking up, you know?
I mean, who would take the time to call in, and then when you get disconnected, you don't call back?
Yeah, that's weird to me. But they don't say exactly what it is that made them feel this guy had evidence, but...
And no call ID.
The 90s, man. In August 1993, information led police to search farmland in Webster County for bodies. They disclosed that they found items at the scene, but didn't elaborate, and the results of the search warrant were sealed.
It was 50 cigarette butts.
A lead in 1994 pushed authorities to search a section of Bull Shoals Lake where pieces of clothing were found, but they did not match the description of what the women were thought to be wearing. Most interestingly, in 2006, a group of amateur detectives went to Springfield Police and Greene County Prosecutor Daryl Moore with their theory that the three women are buried under a parking garage near Cox South Hospital, which was built a year after the disappearance.
Cox?
Yeah, Cox Hospital. Didn't we have a suspect with that name?
We sure did, yeah.
They're not connected. It's not like his family's hospital or whatever.
I thought like his family was really rich.
But isn't that weird?
I thought his family was really rich and like the foundations were poured right after the...
Well, I've read that this could be... They thought that this could be a burial site due to a tip from a psychic, and
Oh, Jesus.
I kept seeing the thing about the psychic repeated, but I don't know where that comes from. Authorities decided not to dig under the garage, saying there isn't enough evidence to warrant the cost of digging. So one of the sleuths hired mechanical engineer Rick Norland to come to the hospital and investigate the disappearance of some women. He was not told specifics, how many, whatever. Norland, for his part, is an expert with ground-penetrating radar, and he was known for assisting with victim recovery from 9/11. So, professional guy, not just some schmo.
And his area of expertise is finding bodies under concrete.
Yeah. Yes. GPR, or ground-penetrating radar, it can be used to detect buried objects, changes in the material underground, and cracks or voids under the surface. So Norland scanned the garage, looking to see if there were any anomalies under the car park's pavement. He found 3 anomalies, all roughly about the same size, 2 parallel and 1 perpendicular to the other 2.
So that's definitely them, right?
He said that this is basically what you'd see in the case of a gravesite. However, the Springfield police were not convinced that these results were convincing enough to justify tearing up the concrete, and felt the timing didn't add up as the garage was built a year after the women's disappearance. But that, as far as I can tell, is when it was completed.
Oh, no.
According to the disappeared episode, and this case is so far back now that there's a lot of conflicting stuff, but according to this disappeared episode, it was under construction during the disappearance.
No!
Kind of convenient, like Jimmy Hoffa being buried under, what is it, Giants Stadium?
Yeah, if that's true, it might be Shea Stadium. If that's true, Giants makes more sense.
I think it's a football stadium, so I didn't know if it was Jets or Giants.
It's the same stadium.
Oh.
If that's true, that is some fuck bad police work, Carrie. That is a bad excuse from the police.
Yeah, I mean, it's a freaking parking lot. A small area of it. Just dig it up. Why not? They seem to be reconsidering digging it up again in 2010, but since then, as far as I can tell, not a mucho.
And that was 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Some people say that it would have caved in by now, that amount of, like a hole underneath concrete being driven over and stuff, but I don't know. It's a small area of the parking lot.
And it's just three
anomalies.
3 little bodies.
3 body-sized anomalies.
Just in the concrete, presumably.
In a shallow crevice under the concrete. Just dig it up.
Just dig it up.
Just dig it up.
I wonder if you would have to destroy the whole parking garage, though?
No. No. I'm getting so mad right now.
If it's just a hole in the floor, if it's just a hole in the floor that you could repave, then it's enraging that they won't just dig up these bodies.
It seems insane to me.
So here's my question. Do those cyber sleuths, do we know who their suspect is? Because presumably if they knew the burial site, they have to have an idea of who did it.
That I'm not sure.
What?
I didn't go to like the original Web Sleuths posts about this, so I apologize. I was kind of looking at the discussion of the actual investigation into it and Rick Norland looking into it. I don't know, because there are a lot of theories, and let's go into some of them.
Okay.
So first, we have Bart Streeter, Susie's older brother, Sherrill's ne'er-do-well son.
Yep, boozer.
I don't think this is it. He may have been a shithead with a temper, but killing them? I don't know. And Stacey, someone he may not even have known.
Here's the thing. He has, in a drunken rage, punched 2 of the 3 women in the house.
And that's not great. It's very, very not great.
But, no, of course. That goes without saying. But what that says to me is the only way it fits with him killing his mom and sister is he kills them in a violent, drunken rage. That part I see. And then the house is immaculately clean afterward, and he disposes of these bodies, no problem. And
it seems like something that
sloppy?
would be sloppy or passionate or whatever.
So I don't buy it.
Not sneaky and calculating.
This was like the Deadly Viper assassination squad.
I mean, and he would have to kill Stacey, and why would he even think like if he went to kill both of them, why would he think Suzie would be home? It was graduation night.
Well, no, I everything you've told me makes me think that if it was him, it would be like an accidental.
Yes.
He hits his sister with an iron
and
or
she
something.
Falls on
she
something
falls and her neck breaks, and then he goes, "Oh shit!" And the mom goes, "You killed her!" And then he strangles the mom.
But again, there would be evidence. Yeah.
Yeah, there'd be evidence.
Bart was also interviewed on the Disappeared episode and was the creator of the Streeter family blog that kind of put together a lot of the crime facts and tips. So I know killers are stupid enough to insert themselves in media all the time like this, but taking a risk like that is big, and it just, like you said, it doesn't add up for me. It seems like something that would be done out of passion or anger, and there would be evidence. And in the Disappeared episode, for his part, he sounded regretful of his actions, and he took full ownership of his alcoholism and abusive behavior. So now we have Dustin Rekla and or Michael Clay, the grave robbers.
Yeah. These 2 doofuses. It would be robbery.
Yeah. I mean, also, it just seems like a big jump for me to commit triple murder to prevent one witness talking at your grave robbery trial.
Well, yeah, and it's not like a kidnapping for ransom. There was nothing taken from the house that was valuable. So it would be like a psychosexual, like serial killer kind of a murder?
Just like a mob type of hit. Like, you can't witness against me, but then you kill 2 people you don't have to.
I forgot about the witness angle, but
you make Sherrill and Stacey collateral damage. Like, if they really wanted to do something to Suzie, they could have gotten her alone somehow to do the deed, right? Why involve 2 other people in the crime?
It's not even like she's a linchpin witness. The pawn shop guy is probably your star witness there because they sold him a bunch of teeth.
When police first went to investigate the pair, they arrived at Clay's home when he wasn't home. However, they caught sight of some kind of altar, including a pentagram poster, candles, and an animal skull, leading to thoughts of some sort of satanic ritual.
Oh, so we are going to talk about cults.
Ding. Well, Sean, as we both know, these are probably just the decor accents of a gothy kid.
In 1992? Yeah.
Yeah. When the police returned the next day to question Clay, all of the paraphernalia had been removed.
Well, he knew the police were coming back and he wanted to look like a nice little boy.
Exactly. Ronald Craig Cox. Now, this guy gets to me. He's clearly a terrible person, a violent criminal, even if he didn't commit that first murder, which I think he did.
It sounds a lot like he committed that first murder.
The fact that he worked with Stacey's father and had likely run into her and was working at the Streeter-Levitt home near the time of the disappearance is a lot of coincidence at once.
Yeah, how close to the disappearance was he working on the phones?
This was something I only really saw in the People Magazine Investigates documentary, but it seemed like around that time.
That's pretty suspicious. Again, the car dealership thing, whatever.
Was Cox lurking around the home, spotted Stacey arriving there late that night, recognized her, and decided to do something to the women? Maybe he had even knocked on the door wearing his uniform, informed Sherrill that the house had some sort of problem, and he was let in for some emergency maintenance. It could explain the lack of a struggle. And there's also that use ruse of Gasman checking for leak note, which could fit in weirdly.
Oh, no. That still has no...
But it weirdly could fit in.
Why did he put it in a magazine rack?
I don't know. Maybe he's like the uncle in It's a Wonderful Life and it's just very, very forgetful. And
maybe this is like a hit, and that was the dead drop for his instructions was the magazine rack, and he forgot to take the message away.
That's just a little bit of spice on there. But I mean, if he was a creep, he knew these two women lived at that house alone, or maybe just knew Sherrill was there. And then these two girls arrive late at night, and one of them, he's like, "Oh, I've seen her before." Maybe he goes in the house. And
his family is building a hospital nearby. Not his family.
But I mean, and then you go to Cox Hospital. It might stick in your mind that they're building a Cox Hospital because that's your last name. Just like if they were building a McCabe Hospital around here, we might make a note of it. And you dispose of the bodies in the construction site.
Before they pour the foundation.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's interesting. It's very interesting.
It fits. It's the only one you've given me that fits so far.
Or it could have been something else completely, altogether different. It could be a serial killer, some weird mystery. There are plenty of theories around Springfield to this day and around the internet.
Well, if it was that guy Cox, he is a serial killer.
Right.
And where is he? Did he end up in prison for something else?
He's still in Texas for that armed robbery. It could be the Missouri Mafia, because...
Why?
Something about Sherrill's sister being involved in the Mafia, and maybe this was a hit.
Well, then kill her.
Exactly. It could be other various convicted felons and killers going through the countryside at that time, including Gerald Carnahan, Larry Dwayne Hall, and Stephen Eugene Garrison. These are whole other rabbit holes that we don't have time for today, but if you're not satisfied with any of the other possibilities, you could check it out. I've heard of maybe a mass rapture event being posed as a half serious theory. But
well, it's not a mass rapture if it's only 3 people.
Three person rapture. I don't know. What do you think, Sean?
I think Cox makes the most sense to me. I think it's possible it was just a random maniac.
I won't be satisfied until they dig up that car park, because they haven't found them anywhere else. There's no sign of them anywhere else. But if it really was under construction at the time.
And the idea that the guy running the radar didn't know that there were 3 women he was looking for.
And he's an expert, I mean, we trusted him finding victims in 9/11. Why don't we trust him here in Missouri? Just dig it up.
Well, in 9/11, all you were digging up was rubble.
Parking at a hospital is shit anyway. Just close it off for a week and dig it up.
You were looking for real people as well in some cases then.
We could be looking for real people here.
Sorry, these are real people. I mean living people.
That's true, but still, like, just do it. Because there's going to be a question mark always. And it's a parking lot. It's not even like part of the hospital that's important. It's not the cancer wing. Dig it up.
Dig it up.
Cox is definitely the most interesting to me. I don't like when criminals are very coy about things, because usually that means that they're just being coy and they're not involved. But some of these other things about him working around the house and him having seen Stacey McCall before, probably, like, it's very intriguing.
Just having been convicted of that first murder on those circumstances.
A violent crime against a teenage girl involving kidnapping.
And then getting off, and that he moved to this town. So
I think his parents were here.
But even before you said that he was working outside the house and stuff, I was like, yeah, this is already a pretty good fit.
And then he comes into possible contact with both sets of people.
And the only question is, it again looks like a really well done, I'm not patting him on the head or anything, but it looks like a pretty efficient, professional, no traces left kind of a job if these women were snatched. And is he, I don't know, based on his first murder, it doesn't seem like he maybe is equipped for really, really tidy. But maybe he learned lessons.
Maybe he drove them somewhere, or maybe Suzie was driving that day and they ended up somewhere else and he killed them. And this tip only came in later. He might have had time to clean up after that. If it wasn't in the house, where else were the police going to check? The
question would be whether he committed any more murders after this, because
he committed,
these people don't seem to stop,
violent offenses, which is why he was in,
and then he ended up in prison.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's the most intriguing one so far, but I'll let y'all know if we hear anything, if Cox's mom dies, or if they finally dig up that parking lot, which I still don't believe they have. Maybe we will get answers someday.
Find what you can on that lady's health. It might be our best bet.
I'll do my best.
Dig it up.
Dig her up. On a lighter note, it's our Weirdo of the Week. Following hot on the heels of Mystic Baba Vanga and her 2022 predictions from last week.
Oh, yes. Do we have more predictions?
Well, we have Lad Bible reporting on Jemima Packington, better known as Mystic Veg.
You don't go with Aunt Jemima? Really?
Nope. Mystic Veg.
Veg?
She's a fortune teller herself, hailing from Britain, and is known as the world's only asparamancer.
Oh, Jesus.
What's that, you may ask?
I don't.
Well, Miss Mystic Veg claims that she can view the future by tossing spears of asparagus in the air and interpreting how they land, like some sort of stinky pea divination.
Oh, it's like the I Ching.
Apparently, Mystic Veg previously correctly predicted Brexit, the death of Prince Philip, Theresa May being ousted as Prime Minister, and Harry and Meghan stepping back from the royal family.
In what words? That's what I'm always curious about. Was it like, and two of the great shall be cast asunder? No,
it's more specific than that as far as I can tell. Due to her being British, a lot of her predictions are very British. So
more crumpets.
Well, for her part, Veg says, quote, I am usually about 75 to 90% accurate with my predictions. I go through my predictions each year and think, yep, that's happened. Yep, that's happened. Occasionally I get one slightly off where I haven't quite read it correctly, but I am never far off. I predicted Boris Johnson would become Prime Minister about 4 years before he did, and everyone laughed their socks off.
Are you right 75% of the time, or are you always right and sometimes it's off a little?
For her divination, she requires fresh Worcestershire asparagus grown in the Vale of Evesham.
Wow.
So that's the good stuff.
Yeah, sure. You need a connection to that fairyland.
Among her predictions for 2022 are Boris Johnson will continue as prime minister.
Okay.
The royal family will endure more sadness, including scandals and worse.
Well, the Queen's going to die this year, probably.
COVID and all its variants will be with us forever, but everyone will learn to adapt and not let it get the better of us.
That's not a prediction.
She predicts it, Sean. A brand new way of living will become the norm, working from home and such, but people will no longer accept shoddy services hiding behind the guise of the pandemic.
She's describing what's happening right this second.
Well, she's very good, Sean. Climate change will continue and fewer countries will be active in its reversal. We will be shocked at the news of the unexpected demise of showbiz legends.
What?
Tense times will continue on the international front, but conflicts will be avoided. The Oscar for Best Picture will go to The Power of the Dog, and Benedict Cumberbatch will be nominated for Best Actor.
Oh, so she also gets into film criticism?
The West Indies will be the surprise winners of the Cricket World Cup in Australia.
Oh my God, we have to keep track of that.
And agriculture will progress well, and the Vale of Evesham asparagus will continue to be recognized as the world's best.
Is that one she sticks in every year, like a Groundhog Day kind of?
Maybe. So there it is, Sean. We've got peace, love, and asparagus.
I love it. From the Asparamancer. Oh,
Mystic veg.
I can't wait to build an Asparamancer in D&D now.
Absurd, truly. It's like casting bones, but dumber.
It's like casting bones, but dumber?
Yeah, casting bones.
Oh,
like
I see.
Throwing bones.
I thought there was a D&D spell called bones.
So there it is, Sean.
Unbelievable. Well, thank you for just sharing your wisdom with me. And
don't thank me. Thank Mystic Veg.
Mystic Veg. And Betty White just passed. Rest in peace.
R.I.P.
So maybe Mystic Veg's predictions are already coming true.
Oh, my. That's it for this episode of Ain't It Scary with Sean and Carrie. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Ain't It Scary, and check out our website at ain'titscary.com. You can support the show by supporting our sponsors and becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/ain'titscary. And please subscribe to the show and throw us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'll be forever grateful. Don't forget to screenshot your 5-star reviews and share with us on social media for your chance to win a gift straight from us.
And we'd love to have you over on Patreon. We had a send-up of Christmas novelty tunes this past week to cap off the holiday season. Next week, I'm going to read Carrie some H.P. Lovecraft, so you can listen in on that if you're interested. Special thanks to those of you already in our top patron tiers: Nate Curtis, Sean O'Donnell, Jared Chamberlain, Maria Ferrante, Robin McCabe, Comfy Mike, Alex Nakutis, Ryan Regan, and Christy Atchison. Thanks, guys. We love you.
See you next Thursday.
Show created by Sean and Carrie McCabe, music by Kyle Ryan, and you can find Kyle at his YouTube channel, Music is a Verb.
This has been a production of Long Boy Media.